Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and this program is about the exploration of consciousness. And if you've been following my program over the last couple of years, you know I really love to check out channels and channeling because I feel that is probably the purest information we can get from the source, from people who've kind of accessed a higher level of their consciousness. So I've interviewed a lot of the great channels that I feel are on the planet right now. J.Z. Knight, Darryl Anka and Bashar, Paul Selig. So now I've met another one. I've met another master of channeling who can tap into the higher levels of consciousness and start to help people evolve at this time of transformation. So I'm talking today to Lincoln. Lincoln is the channel for Higher Self. Is that the YouTube channel?
Yes, it is.
What is it exactly?
Channel Higher Self.
Channel Higher Self. That's Lincoln. And lots of people have been talking about him in Sedona. So I'm happy we got a chance to sit down and just kind of connect, because I think channeling is really one of the most fascinating aspects of the human mind. How do we get out of the way of the personality and let something higher come through there?
Yeah.
So how did it, you were telling me a little bit, like you grew up in rural Pennsylvania, and you weren't, like, it wasn't an education, you didn't grow up hearing about spirituality.
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah, I grew up Roman Catholic.
Oh.
And I didn't really read my first spiritual book until I was 18.
And what was that book?
Carlos Castaneda's Teachings of Don Juan.
Now, why did you, where did that come from? I love those books.
Yeah.
But why, how'd you get that book?
It's actually an interesting story. So it was the day after my high school education finished.
Mm-hmm. You graduated high school?
Technically, no.
Or you just left high school?
Yeah. So the classes stopped, and then we had like a week before the graduation ceremony.
Right.
So my friends, they were working. My part-time job didn't become my full-time job like it usually does during the summer yet, because it was the first day after high school. Right. So I'm really bored. And I'm walking around the house, and I asked my mom, like, what can I do? And she's like, watch a movie. And I worked at a movie store. And so I said, no, I've seen all the movies. And she's like, well, go outside or talk to your friends. Like, no, they're all busy and there's nothing to do. She said, read a book. And I said, Mom.
That's a new idea, right?
Yeah. So I said, Mom, you know I don't read books.
Oh, you didn't read books?
I didn't read books, because I told her, I said, why do I want to learn about someone else's reality when I want to live my own?
Right. You told your mother that.
I told my mother.
That's pretty evolved yourself.
Years old.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I didn't realize that till later on, that I was sensitive to other people's vibrations and their consciousness and their energy.
Wow.
Because in high school, you're taught to read all these depressing books.
I know, awful.
And I hated them.
Either that or mindless, you know.
And I thought that was reading. It's like, I hate reading.
Right. No, yeah, right. Because you're getting their, like, programmed thought forms into your consciousness.
Definitely. And it just didn't resonate with me.
Right,
not at all. So my mom's like, no, these books are different. Okay. And so she showed me her bookshelf. And I had seen her bookcase, but I never looked through it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going through all these books, and I needed her to recommend something. So she recommended Carlos Castaneda.
Why did she have that book on her bookshelf?
My mom had been exploring spirituality for probably like 7 or 8 years.
So she wasn't a strict Catholic herself.
No, she decided to start exploring spirituality. I don't know the reason why. I know she was part of a women's group, and they did meditation.
Oh, nice.
And the teacher of the group went down to Peru and did ayahuasca. She also was part of the Tibetan Buddhist community.
Oh, so she was really open, your mother.
My mom was starting to be very open.
But you didn't know anything about spirituality.
I had no clue.
Because Castaneda really isn't spiritual in a sense. It's higher alternate.
Yeah, it's other realities.
Yeah,
but that's what I consider spirituality.
Okay.
And I realize what you're saying. Like, it is a higher level, but for me, that's the introduction to the spiritual dimension.
Right, that alternate realities.
Yeah, all these different, non-physical reality, and even how it integrates into this reality with vibration and light, and even how the psychedelic plants help to expand your consciousness while you're here in this reality.
Right. Although in the third book, The Journey to Ixtlan, he said he just needed those plants to crack them open, but they
just open the door.
Right, but so that opened. You read Castaneda, you read all those books, which I love. The whole, like, I think there's 12 or 8 or something and I read them back to back, right? And it's education.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I loved it. Yeah. So I took them with me into college, and I ended up really changing my life. So prior to that point in time, I played sports and I was social. I hung out with my friends. And I started becoming really obsessed with this other reality that Don Juan was teaching me.
Yeah, definitely.
I ended up stopping socializing, stopping the use of alcohol, stopping partying.
Because of those books.
Because of those books.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Because they said, clean up your energy field.
Yeah, and for me, it was really tangible. I couldn't meditate in the morning when I had been drinking the night before.
Wow.
I didn't feel like it. My mind was foggy. I just wanted to like lay on the couch the next morning.
At least you were smart enough to notice the difference
Yeah.
between...
And I was eating organic food. So my mother also worked at a health food store.
Oh,
She started that when I was like 13 or 14.
Oh, great. She's quite evolved, your mother.
She really is, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we had a juicer. I took a juicer to college with me. I was doing water fasting and herbal cleanses. And
What did you go to study in college?
I studied 4 different programs. I started actually with pre-med. So I went to a liberal arts school that was basically designed for doctors and lawyers. It was
Which
really
one was
specific. Franklin and Marshall.
Oh, yeah. I actually, I've been there. It's in what part of Pennsylvania?
Lancaster.
Right.
It's outside of Philadelphia.
Franklin and Marshall.
Yep.
Yes.
So I was part of the pre-med program, and you basically spend like 3 years there, and then you go to UPenn to finish your pre-med.
Right.
And had a really, really good program, and I wanted to be a doctor.
You did want to be a doctor because you wanted to help people.
I wanted to help people, and I was very intelligent, and school came easy to me.
Right.
And I was interested in the mind, so I wanted to be a psychiatrist. But my mother also taught me about the medical system and pharmaceuticals. And so even at that young age, I was not a fan of pharmaceutical drugs.
Right.
I liked psychology, and I liked being able to fix the problem at the source and not just mask the problem with chemicals.
And you knew the problem was the emotions, right?
I did know that, yeah.
How did you know that?
I think just talking to my mom.
Yeah.
But also it's interesting. When I was like 13 or 14 in high school, I was actually counseling kids who were having relationship problems.
Wow.
And I just had this intuitive knowledge and a knowing about like self-respect. And I remember telling a young girl, like, you don't need this guy to be happy. Like, he doesn't treat you well. And when I was talking to her, she knew it. And I felt the connection. And then like a few days later, she's back in the relationship with the emotionally abusive partner. And it surprised me. And it kind of introduced me to people can have insights, but changing a pattern is something deeper and something often.
Right. And how do you change that pattern usually? I mean,
it's different for different people, but essentially you have to bring your consciousness into the emotion. So you have to actually feel it.
Feel the pattern and how stuck the pattern is for you?
Like track the emotion. So the way like Don Juan would talk about it, you have to track it.
Stalk it.
Stalk it, exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to be very aware of it and find where that feeling is in your body. Also notice the patterns of thoughts that arise when you're experiencing that feeling.
Right.
And as you bring your witnessing awareness into that feeling, essentially it opens up to you. And you might find a memory coming up. Maybe you just have spontaneous emotion, like you start crying, or your body gets really hot, or you start shaking, or you laugh.
Right.
So just by bringing your consciousness, because your consciousness is a flow of divine creative energy.
Right.
That's what you are. You're a channel of divine creative energy. So just by focusing on something, you bring divinity into that experience, and it starts the healing process.
But you have to know there is a pattern to begin with, right? That's part of the problem is people just go automatic, and that's how they think they are. And
they think they're stuck. We have a very materialistic way of conditioning our mind.
Right.
We don't believe in God. Science discounts God. Science discounts other dimensions. The universe is random and chaotic. You're just here by chance. Sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. Right. You know?
Right. But we have to see. I had a great teacher who would always point out people's patterns. And he said, did you see what you did there? Did you see? I mean, it gets to be a little annoying if your ego's invested. But if you want to change, you say, oh, thank you, because you've just shown me a part of myself I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, we help each other because sometimes it's really hard to see our own patterns.
But the ego doesn't like it. To point out,
It depends how you work with the ego.
I guess.
So it's interesting. Today I had, which I was telling you about before the interview, the Inner Circle, which is a weekly meeting with a group of my dedicated students. And one of the students asked this question, right? Because they're having all kinds of stress. They're trying to change their personality constructs. They're trying to heal their body. And they're just having all this chaos inside. And so the higher self taught how to really understand that your ego is an autopilot that's been conditioned from your past experience. So it just uses your understanding and tells you it as thought or shows you it as emotional responses.
Right.
And it's actually working on your behalf. So
it is and it isn't, though, too, right?
It is until you start to fight with it, until you make an enemy out of it. So when I was young and I started, learning about spirituality, like 18, and doing Zen meditation, I had an idea, and I think it was about 20 years old at the time, and I realized never fight with your own mind because you're going to lose.
Well, who is fighting with the mind? Who is the part of the mind that's fighting with the mind?
It's the ego fighting with the ego.
Right.
But we don't realize that in the beginning because we're connected as being that ego. But I think there's a lot of spiritual teachings and like psychotherapy teachings that make the ego or our thoughts or our emotions or our wounded past an enemy. And we have to change it and we have to remove it.
Right.
My experience is the ego works with you. You're the boss. This is your servant. This ego serves you in a very compatible, loving way. It tries to help you create in the present moment by remembering everything that happened in your past.
Right.
Now, the problem is we were confused and we were traumatized in our past. So what we learned is dysfunctional.
Yes, that's the problem.
Not the ego, but the memories and what we learned from our experiences. So the ego as a structure serves us. We just have to change the conditioning.
So if someone says to me, you always like say those words or you're always doing this, it's like I'm getting a little offended because they don't like what I'm doing and they're just pointing out a pattern where I think is self, but it's not self. It's an automatic, unconscious part.
Yeah. So something to help discern the difference is if you hear your thoughts, that's your subconscious communicating what I call your memory-based conditioning.
Right.
And it's telling it to you right now, offering a suggestion. If you want to create with this, you can. You can make choices by these thoughts. You can speak these thoughts as words. If we understand that our subconscious mind talks to us, and then we identify ourselves as the present moment witnessing awareness, that starts to separate our identity from the ego or the personality construct with the consciousness.
Right.
And then from that place of consciousness, we can do practices like affirmations. And we can learn the difference between consciously creating a thought and listening to a thought and identifying with it or acting on it.
Right. So if we have a pattern of behavior that we identify as self, someone points this out, we can say, oh, thank you. I didn't notice that because now I'm more conscious of it.
Yeah.
Or we could say, get lost. This is how this is who I am.
I want to punch him in the nose.
But I think it's also an approach. It's like if you see that someone is for you, as opposed to, because I'm very sensitive to criticism. And so I contract and shut off and the ego defends itself. But I think, and we can't expect people to be nice or pick when they're pointing stuff out. But if they can say, do you notice, and this is for you, Lincoln, this is for you. Do you notice what you're doing when, and it's like, oh, thank you. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it has to be delivered in the right energy. And usually you can feel when someone cares about you and they're sincere in their approach. So sometimes we get teachers or therapists who are more interested in themselves teaching.
Right.
And we don't feel that heart-centered connection.
Right. But I had a teacher who said, even if 1% of what someone says to you is true, take that little piece because they are giving you something.
Yeah,
it's hard.
The question is what's true and what's not. Because it's difficult until you validate it yourself.
Right, but usually if there's a reaction, there's a little bit of, in a way, indirect validation, right?
You should look at it.
Yeah.
So my approach, even with channeling the higher self, and this really helped me when I first began, and it helped me with discernment of different teachings and teachers, was to take everything with a grain of salt. Even if it comes from these most acclaimed spiritual teachers or these most recognized books, I always took it with a grain of salt because I needed to validate it in my own experience.
Yes.
I needed to make sure it fit with my reality.
Well, definitely. But it can go outside your reality that you might not have an experience for, and then you just have to...
You just let it sit there for a while.
Okay.
You don't have to reject it.
Right.
But you can just let it sit there, especially if you feel an attraction to it, because you know it wants to come into my reality, but it's just not ready.
An attraction or repulsion, actually, too.
Sometimes a repulsion, but sometimes repulsion is healthy.
Yeah, I think so.
Sometimes you're recognizing what's not serving you, and until you really know your intuition and like the language it uses, that can be difficult to discern.
Right. Sometimes, though, the thing that may repel us is something that will serve us even more, but the ego can't let that in.
Yeah, you have to look at what am I resisting?
Right.
And this was actually today's lesson. So we're working with relationships in the inner circle right now. And today's lesson was, for example, what I get angry at you about, and like I don't like maybe how you dress because like you're showing up like very classy. Right?
Okay, sorry.
I don't like how you dress. Why? Because I don't like something about myself and how I dress.
Right.
So if I think like you're really looking good right now and that upsets me, I probably don't let myself look really good.
Right.
I probably am afraid to express myself. So when I see someone else expressing themselves, that upsets me. So the ego will project onto other people and get angry about things that others are doing that we don't let ourselves do, but we really want to do.
So how would you get over that little ego thing?
In this situation, and the teaching that was given by the higher self is we share gratitude and we celebrate the way another person lives. So
I love that.
I compliment you on your outfit. I say, you're looking good.
Even if you're having a little thing about it.
Even if I'm insecure, I should try to break through and give you a compliment and put into the universe recognition that I'm supporting good-looking dress in my reality.
Right. So, that is great.
And then it becomes easier. If I'm supporting it in the external world, I'm automatically supporting it inside myself because I'm bringing it into my vibrational reality.
So anything we have a kind of reaction, we turn around.
Yeah.
Look for the gratitude. Look for the way to turn into a positive.
Turn into a positive, yeah. Because what we're resisting, we're actually holding on to and channeling our creative energy into, but that ultimately is not taking us in that flow state towards what we want. Great.
I love that. How did you come in like sort of aware of certain levels that you just didn't have?
I was pretty awake and aware.
As you came in to...
Yeah, but I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't exposed to this genre of understanding. I wasn't exposed to people like this.
Right.
So I moved to Sedona. Actually, I was a junior in college. I just finished my year and I was going to be a senior. And during the summer, I came to Sedona. I lived here. Because the year prior, I visited and I felt such a strong connection.
There is something here, isn't there?
Oh, it's magical.
The red rocks and the energetics.
It pulls you.
It does. So you came here and then?
I came here and I met a guy. And he had lived here for like 20 years or so.
Who was I? Probably know him.
His name was Life. That's his
I
first
know
name,
Life.
You know Life?
Yeah, the older guy, Life. Yeah, I knew Life.
Met him like
He's an
15
intense
years ago.
guy.
He's intense.
I knew Life from the 80s.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Life. Is he still around? Is he still around?
He moved down to Central America a
he
few years
did?
ago.
Oh.
Yeah, he was living in like spiritual communities, ego communities down there.
I knew Life. He was quite an intense guy.
He was very intense.
And so what happened with Life?
So he was one of the first people who recognized that I look at life differently, that I have a different understanding.
You didn't know that about yourself?
I honestly didn't.
Wow.
I had thought that it was an information-based world, and you just didn't have the information. So I thought if I gave you the information, it should change you, because that's how it happened inside of me. But I didn't realize that I was operating in a different way, and I was very fluid, and I was very affected by, and I could integrate knowledge very easily. So I read Castaneda, and it changed me.
Yeah.
It changed my whole life, and I made choices different, and that information changed me. I didn't realize that you couldn't just do that to someone else.
Or maybe if they were open, but...
Yeah, and that's one thing Life said. He said the most valuable thing that he felt anybody could do was to give another person an experience.
Yes, because experience becomes wisdom.
Exactly.
Without experience, you don't have... All you have is data.
Yeah, and that knowledge stuck with me, and I know that has influenced the work I do now.
Nice.
Because my goal is to help people with the experience of awakening. I don't just talk about things. I mean, of course, concepts come through, but for me, the ego's the narrator. I want to be a creator.
So you give people experience. Lincoln is a channel for what you're calling the higher self.
Yeah, channel for the higher self. Now, the best thing I can do is I can present something to you. I can give you my words. I can share with you my energy. I can create an environment, but I can't actually make you take it.
So how do you give experience?
And I can't control how you use it.
Right. So how do you help people with experience?
You try to be as clear as you can in your expression, not only of words or knowledge, but of energy. And also you have to have a foundation that everything is one consciousness.
Right.
And there's no separation.
And then how do they get experience, even with all those nice words?
It happens. It's some called it grace.
Do you give them an assignment, the people you're working with?
I give them practices, but it's not so much about you trying to create the experience. It's more about you connecting in with the energy of it, which actually contains the knowledge within it. Because knowledge and energy are the same. It's like light carries information.
Right.
So I can, at the best of my ability, express vibration and the knowledge, and I feel it. So I feel that as a frequency of non-physical reality.
And you actually send that frequency out to people?
It just radiates.
You don't do anything?
I don't try to give it to them. I don't try to send it to them particularly. I don't try to change them. I just express myself as fully as I can into the universe. Like the sun just radiates it.
How do you express yourself fully? Like, what is the secret to doing that?
Well, a lot of it is forgetting the self.
Forgetting the self, the personal self-importance, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's just letting it flow.
You just out of the way. There's no you. There's no history, no person.
There's no narrator. There's no self-conscious judge that says, what should I say next? There's no feeling of anxiety or tension. So in my own training, I chose to integrate Zen with Castaneda's teachings when I first began.
Beautiful.
Because Castaneda or Don Juan said the most important thing to do is to silence your internal dialogue.
I know, that is great.
So I had to go find out how to do it because Castaneda didn't really teach it other than like throw you off a cliff.
Or walking and staring and stopping.
Yeah, you can see with your eyes.
Yes. But you found that in Zen.
I found it in Zen because the focus of the Zen teachings I found were directly related to that. It didn't have to do with worship of gurus or gods or anything like that. It had to do with silencing your thoughts. So I found a method, be awareness.
Yes.
And whenever you have a thought, come back to awareness. Whenever you have emotion, come back to awareness. And what I learned very early on was how to feel the tangible difference between being in that state of awareness and then like going a little less aware, a little unconscious, and then the thought appears.
So how do you have a history or a name or anything that identifies self? Aren't you the non-self?
You have to have an ego in some regard because the way I define the ego is the way that Carl Jung defined the ego. So the beginning of psychology. It's your idea of yourself. It's your personality construct.
Right.
You can't remember to eat food if you don't have an ego because your ego remembers what the sensation of hunger means in your body. So when you're an infant, you don't really understand anything about your sensations.
Right.
And all you do is cry when you have any sensation. And then you start to associate, when I cry, mom feeds me. And so this uncomfortable energy I eliminate it by crying because I get fed. And then your communication and your understanding develops as you keep growing.
Right.
So you learn how to interpret your sensations physically and emotionally. That whole structure, I believe, stays with us because it's in the nervous system. It's in the brain and the body. The challenge we have with like the spiritual identity of the ego is it's the story. It's not necessarily the information of what sensation.
It's not the needs, because the body needs. It's what we do with those. It's
the story. I feel offended by you. How dare you say that to me? Right. Or I don't like how you're looking at me. Like that bothers me in some way. So we have a story that I'm a character and I have beliefs of what's good and evil, what I like and what I don't like. That's that like ego construct of personality. But mixed into the memory is also like, what do you do with sensations? And that's, I think, where people struggle sometimes for this emotional healing process. Because we try to go through the personality's story all the time, and we forget that a lot of our deepest emotional conditions came before we had a story, before the age of 5 to 7.
Like what's an example of that, the emotional condition?
So you're in your family, and your mom and your dad are fighting, and you feel their anger.
Sounds like my family.
It sounds like most of our families.
So I'm having an emotion.
I'm feeling it. You're the little kid. You're the infant.
It's like my fault. That's the emotion.
You don't know why it's in your body, but it feels like terror and panic, like danger, like the red sirens are going off. And to mom and dad, it's normal. But to the young child, you have no idea what this intense, visceral sensation is in your body.
Right.
And so you start building an understanding of what that vibration means, what that emotion means. Now, the problem we have is we don't talk to children correctly, I feel. We don't help them understand the language of emotion.
What would you say to a child that was feeling that?
The first thing is that I would try to not put that emotion in a child's environment.
Right. But if it's there and they're upset because
then it depends on the age level.
Right,
it's really challenging. The first thing I would do is comfort them. I would speak to their emotion, because if they don't understand language yet, if they're very young and they can't self-reflect in their mind yet, in their brain development, I would speak with emotion. So I would comfort the child. Right. It's like a child skins their knee and they're crying because they feel this pain sensation in their body, and they're scared. They don't know how to get rid of it, and it's really strong. And they feel danger, danger. There's inflammation. The body's saying danger because it's sending healing energy and healing chemicals to the wound. But in the child's mind, danger, danger, what do I do? So you comfort the child, you help them feel safe. And maybe you explain to them something about, oh, your father and I were just having a strong conversation. Things are going to get better. Right. Something that helps the child just understand that the suffering, the fear, the terror response is temporary. It's okay. It's going to move forward.
We need that. I still need that.
We all need to be held.
All right. Yeah. No, but or talk to that child part of me needs to say, oh, okay. Yeah. But is there anything you're working on in your personality ego that gets stuck? I'm just curious.
I get frustrated. One of my triggers is and it's selfish, and I know it's my thing. It's human incompetence. So I'm driving on the highway and there's somebody in the passing lane, which is technically breaking the law. My mind really hangs on to that idea, and they're driving really slow, and there's another car next to them, and I want to get somewhere, and they're in the way. And I get upset that person doesn't understand the laws of driving that allow for people to drive harmoniously on the road. Right. So I'll get frustrated. I've worked on that a lot over the years.
But when is it connected? But isn't it connected to something of some unmet need? I don't want to do a whole analysis.
Slowing down. Yes, it's fun. Yeah. Slowing down the reaching of a goal because other people are preventing me.
And what bothers you what prevented you in the past that stopped you from reaching your goal? Because it's in there.
That's interesting. I'm trying to find a memory.
I think it's it could be something simple. It could be just reaching for a toy or something, or being stopped.
Because I'm thinking about school and sports, which I was involved in, but I was never really hung up on winning. And school was really easy for me.
Could have been another llifetime, though. I mean, because
I know where it reflects in my own life. Yeah. So for myself, I have a pattern, and part of it's the healer complex, right? I think most healers have this, where I put other people's needs in front of my own. Right. So I choose to slow down my progress. It's not actually their fault.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I choose to make their needs more important than my own. And that probably comes back to early childhood conditioning with trying to fix mom and dad.
Right, that's Alice Miller. Did you read the drama, The Gifted Child?
No.
Oh, they said if the child's needs are not met, then the child meets the parents' needs, and they never develop a sense of themselves. And so that's how they think they get love, by meeting the needs of the parent. So the child becomes the parent, and they forget what their needs are. They're not in touch with their needs because it's inappropriate, that reversal of roles. So Alice Miller is great on doing that.
That sounds very accurate. It sounds very impressive.
But it's great to know you're still human and working on things. No, because I appreciate that honesty.
We have to be authentic. I don't know if it was Castaneda or something else I learned at the time, a concept I called ruthless honesty.
That's Castaneda, yes.
You had to be so true and authentic with yourself, because your ego is going to try to hide itself in all these different places, and it's going to prevent you from actually reaching the goals you have.
You have to be ruthless with yourself.
And that helps to get rid of that self quality that helps you make you selfless. Right. So I think you can't avoid the self just by dropping out in meditation. Right. I think you actually have to understand the construct of reality and interact in creative reality in order to purify and evolve the self so it becomes cooperative and no longer destructive or self-sabotaging.
Well, the other thing Castaneda says, if you're full of self-importance, that's really a form of self-pity.
It is.
It is.
So, or no, he reversed it, I think. I think he said self-pity, because Castaneda always took pity. It's poor me, poor me. And he said it's actually your self-importance. You think you're so important to be the center of the world.
But don't you think self-importance is also a form of self-pity? I mean, that's
they do go hand in hand. Yeah. So self-importance is really this idea about the self.
Right.
And we hold on to this, and you offend me. So that's my self-importance.
Right.
Like, listen to me. Like, don't you want to serve me and help
Right.
me? That's self-importance. We're so identified with the story, and we make that construct so important that it consumes us every minute of our day until we learn to recognize that that ego structure will never give us the happiness that we want.
Right. I mean, my favorite cartoon from the New Yorker magazine is this drunk guy is at a bar. He's yelling at the bartender saying, "Hey, pal, you have no idea who I think I am." And we all have this story of how we've done this and then this history, and it's not real in a sense because it's not really happening. It's a fabrication of a small part of something.
Because our mind, our mental body lives non-physically.
Yes.
While it's projecting itself into physical forms. And so we create this story in that intermediary place. It's like our imagination. And we build this construct about who I am and what the world means to me between the spiritual and the physical forms. And so it's in our psyche, which is, so my experience is when a soul incarnates, when our consciousness comes here, we connect into the physical body. And outside of this reality, like in the afterlife or an out-of-body experience, you're just an aura, like the luminous egg that Castaneda talks about.
But you're conscious, you're something, right?
You're intelligence and your creative energy.
Okay.
So I say you still have emotion and you still have intelligence. So your emotional body and your mental body stay with you when you leave this physical reality. You drop your physical body. Now, when you bring yourself into this physical reality, your mind and your emotions connect into the physical body. And the interaction of those two organizes your energy body to create all the chakras. Because every chakra is based upon an endocrine gland.
I like that.
And the endocrine gland controls the hormones and the enzymes and the chemical production in the body. And those chemicals instruct all the organs how to behave.
Right.
So our psyche and our emotions instruct the body how to behave, instruct the world how to take its shape in a physical vibration.
Right. But
so,
go ahead.
So for my experience, we create in this interface, this personality interface, a false story. I shouldn't say a false story, a story that lacks accuracy. Because then we can't interact with the world effectively.
But the story is also a fabrication of a particular series of events without looking at the whole thing. So it's not really true.
It's not an evolved story.
It's not anything.
Yeah. A lot of people say not true. And I always have like...
part of it's true. Of course, that happened to you when you were a child, but...
It's a personal truth.
I understand that.
So what I'll say is, you have a personal truth, because I think the way I teach is we shouldn't fight with and reject any part of ourselves.
Yeah, I like that.
Because everything needs to be embraced with love. It needs to be integrated into ourselves. And so you have your personal truth, and there's nothing wrong with that because your experience has shaped that for you. But you can evolve your personal truth to become more accurate, so you now can interact with the world better. Yeah. And you can evolve your personal truth to understand universal things.
Yes.
So that you realize eternal nature, your soul, higher consciousness. So we're here, I feel, to evolve our personal truth to become more accurate, to become more authentic as we expand into God consciousness.
But we come into the body, incarnate, to have certain lessons that the soul or that intelligence wants to experience here.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
I had an out-of-body experience once, and I went to the other side. And the goal of that experience, before I sat down to meditate, was I wanted to go beyond creation or beyond reality, something like that. And I went to the other side, and I actually went back. Instead of going up and out, I went back. And I'm on this other side of reality, and there's this veil of like jelly-like whitish gray light. And beyond that veil is my physical reality. And I saw my body sitting there in my bedroom, in the dark bedroom, meditating. And I'm on the other side, like I got sucked out of the back of my head.
Right.
And there's this jelly-like veil, and when I'm on this other side of reality, I feel more like myself.
Yes, because that is yourself.
Yeah, I drop my human conditioning because that stays in the nervous system. So the story, the ego, it's in the nervous system. That's my experience.
I think so.
So I'm on the other side, and I remember looking in and realizing, like, oh my God, I feel inside myself all the beliefs that I have about reality. And I could see, like, really quick, instant, how every single person in my life that I had a relationship with, friends, family, job, all that, everything part of my life was an expression of these pieces of myself, these karmas, these seeds.
Right.
And they were very clear inside of me on the other side. And the epiphanic knowing that what's inside of me organized everything in my life was so amazing. It was so profoundly felt.
Right, because that's why you incarnate in the first place.
Yeah, so we have these karmic seeds, essentially, and our soul is trying to... Our soul understands something, and we get the reflection of it, and then we get to refine our understanding and evolve our understanding.
And we get to own it. That's the part of the teaching that I've come from, the Ramtha teaching, J.Z. Knight channeling Ramtha. Well, Ramtha says we have experience and we own that experience. On the depth of our soul, it becomes wisdom. When you own an emotion, you feel angry or jealous, but all you have to do is feel the depth of that, and the soul owns that human experience.
Yeah.
Because that's why we're here, to have experience.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and Castaneda was taught, take responsibility.
Right.
And live impeccably.
Exactly. Living impeccably is such a fine-tuned science.
And that's what I use, that principle I've tried to live by. And you asked, how do you create an experience? Because I tried to be impeccable in my expression.
And you're doing pretty good. No, you are. The other teaching that talks about it is the Tao Te Ching.
That was the other book I got in the very beginning.
I
love that book.
The Tao is the way, but the De is impeccability.
Yes, virtue.
It's integrity.
It's how you cultivate within yourself to embrace those qualities of the universe.
Right. It's what in the ancient Hebrew they called a Sadiq.
Okay.
Sadiq. The Melchizedek was the person who's the king. Malik is kingdom. Melchizedek are those who have mastered the righteous ways. Oh,
wow, cool. I didn't know that. That's fascinating. So
there's
the order of Melchizedek.
The order of Melchizedek means the order of the righteous, though. The righteous meaning those with integrity, and impeccability is another way to say that.
Yeah.
So we have that will keep us in check, our impeccable behavior.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes it's just not too much, but every moment has to be, did you make your bed? Did you pick up? If I'm walking in the woods here in the desert, if there's garbage there and I pass it, that's not being impeccable.
Oh, interesting.
For me.
Yes, I approached it a little different.
Oh, tell me.
My impeccability was about what's happening inside of myself.
Oh.
So I was trying to be impeccable with entering into stillness and silence by applying these Zen teachings. And I was trying to be impeccable with my mind's behavior, how I thought and how I maintained silence, and trying to be impeccable with my vibration. So for myself was more like introverted, trying to cultivate an impeccable relationship with my own inner self and my creative expression.
Well, that's valid. That's great. No, impeccability is infinite and endless.
And it's interesting, what comes to mind is I didn't realize these manifestation teachings.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so when I began spirituality, I had no idea that you could manifest anything.
Oh.
Because I really had no exposure to any of this. And so for me, it was other dimensions with Castaneda.
Right.
Okay, and trying to access infinity. And then also inner silence, inner stillness, purification of the self with Buddhism. And then Taoism, living in harmony with nature. So those are the crux of my education, how I tried to live. Right. And then when I came to Sedona after a few years, I came across an article in Four Corners magazine, and it was by Greg Braden. And interestingly, I just saw Greg Braden at a restaurant 5 days ago.
Oh, yeah, I heard he was in town,
Yeah, I was in the booth next to him.
Oh, great.
So, he was really instrumental in my awakening because I found his article, and he wrote about the power of prayer. And he went into the Bible, and he talked about how prayer is used to manifest things and how the principles of prayer are really the principles of creation for the human being. So you focus on one thing, you get fully embodied in it, you give it to the universe, and then you trust, so you let go and relax.
Manifestation.
And I was like, well, you mean people can manifest? So I was like, it's fascinating, I gotta try that. So I was very much Zen and had been for a few years.
Right.
So I would learn to just accept what is and remove desire.
Okay.
So that was my whole thing at that time, just be in the flow. And so I went to a friend's house and I said, I just read this article by Greg Braden and I wanted to try this out. And I said, what do you want to do? And I said, let's manifest something. And he goes, okay, what do you want to manifest? And I took some time and I'm like, you know what? I really can't find anything that comes up out of me, an idea about what I want. I'm happy with everything I have. And I had a used car and I rented a place. So I just didn't want a home or a new car. I didn't want anything. I really didn't.
Okay.
I went inside and nothing came up. I'm like, okay, there's nothing in there. And so I asked him, I said, well, what do you want? And we talked about it for a while, and he wanted a new car. So he already had a pickup truck, and he said, okay, well, I'll take a van. And I said, okay. And I say, well, it's easy to manifest a van because there's so many of them. So let's be more specific. Let's really put the universe to the test and see what Greg Braden's talking about. Right. So he said, okay, I want a van with 30,000 miles on it. And I said, okay, we can find those. That's pretty easy too. We need one more. What else? And he said, okay, for under $3,500.
I think I'll manifest that myself.
Yeah, that's a great deal.
Yeah.
So how are you going to find a van with 30,000 miles, which is basically new, for $3,500? You can't do it.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, I'm not going to block this. Like, this is real. We're trusting it's happening.
Right.
So I'm going to put this into the universe.
You helped him put it into the universe, or he told you what he wanted?
He told me what he wanted, and I manifested it.
You were going to put it in. Why couldn't he do it for himself?
Because I wanted to test it out.
Oh,
I had never done this before.
Okay.
I had no idea the universe worked this way.
All right. So
I just couldn't find a desire in myself that I honestly wanted. And it had to be like genuine in order to have that.
So you got this guy's desire.
I got his desire.
Okay.
So I took it on and I said, okay. And I did my connection. I felt myself like connecting into the universal intelligence and feeling this oneness experience as best I could at the time. And then I told with my mind the universe what I wanted. And I requested that it bring it to me. And then I just let go and I trusted.
Great.
So then we went on another day. We just had fun, hung out and whatnot. So it was probably within a week or two, I was driving back into town, and at the end of my road, there was this stone parking area. It wasn't really a parking lot, but you could park there. And I drove past a yellow van, and I drove past it.
He didn't specify what color he wanted.
He didn't specify what color, but it was bright yellow, like school bus yellow.
Okay.
And that caught my attention, because that yellow color is his favorite color.
Oh, interesting.
So every day he's wearing a yellow hat, or he'd also have a yellow, like button-down linen shirt.
That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, he'd always wear the color yellow. He'd love it. And so I saw the color, and it reminded me of my friend and of what we tried to ask for. And I noticed as I drove past, I looked at my rearview mirror, there was a for sale sign on the windshield. So I turned around and I came back into the lot, and as I'm walking up to it, on the for sale sign, it said $3,500, and it also said 30,000 miles, a rebuilt motor.
Wow. Everything you asked for.
Everything. And it was his color. And so I was ecstatic. I was thrilled.
Yeah.
That was a great confirmation.
Well, you could do that for anything again.
You can. And that's really taught me that. So from that point forward, I ask and I receive.
Wait, so the secret is for people watching, you have an idea or something you want to manifest, and then what did you do?
Okay, so for me...
Secrets to manifestation.
Yeah, here you go. Okay. Here's your lottery ticket.
Yes.
$1 million ticket.
Well, yeah. Okay. So no, tell me, because I want to get it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so for me... it's going into a state of connection to the universe. So you have to understand that you're part of the universe, you're not separate, and that there's a living intelligence that's creating all of this.
All of this, every moment of
everything.
Yeah, right.
And nothing is separate
and
from the
we
mind
are
of God.
part of that living intelligence.
We are that living intelligence.
We are.
Definitely.
So you tell the living intelligence, this is what I want.
Yeah, so you quiet down, you heart center, because for me, that's the center of our being, and that's where we get our energy from, that's where we create from. That's the deepest part of our intelligence.
Yeah.
So we connect to our heart, we feel our connection to the universal intelligence, and then in our mind, we feel like we're communicating from our mind out into the fabric of life.
You actually feel that connection to the self and creation.
Because thought is energy. So when I was practicing Zen and trying to keep a silent mind, I noticed that I would have a feeling of an impulse, a movement of energy from the center of my chest up into my brain. And if it moved forward like an L shape, an upside down L, it would move into the front of my brain and I'd hear a thought.
Wow.
And if I could catch that movement and just become more aware, it would stop. And as long as the movement didn't come here and get to here, I wouldn't hear a thought. As soon as it got to here, I would know what it was I was going to think as an audible thought. So I accessed the knowing consciously of that idea. And if I just caught the movement, I didn't understand what I was going to think. So for me, thought's an energy. So I got in my heart, connected to myself as my soul, this greater creator we all are, and I created a big thought, a sincere desire.
For something.
Yeah, and it comes up and you project it and you think the thought and you feel like you're sending your thought into the universe, into this fabric of intelligence. So when I look with my mind's eye, I see a grid. I see a grid of light that is like this fabric, like an etheric
You actually
fabric.
see it. You
I
actually,
see it
in your mind's eye, and that's what you send the thought into, the grid.
Yeah. Now, when I was younger, I didn't see a grid, but I felt a substance, like a mind substance in the universe. It wasn't for a few years that my third eye opened and I could see.
And so anything you want, you just... But why do we even have wants, in a sense? Isn't that controlling things?
Yeah, because this is where I kind of steer away from Buddhism.
Okay.
So Buddhism was very important for me. I love it. I respect it. I totally appreciate everything it gave to me. But I feel like I've evolved past that in my own personal journey.
Because it's a little stuck, actually. I mean, my judgment.
Yeah, I think we have lots of places to evolve into. Part of what I believe is that in the modern day world, we're bringing the teachings of the East and the teachings of the West together. And the East teaches us how to go within, and the West teaches us how to go outside, how to create into the world. So in order to be a whole person and a whole spiritual consciousness, we have to learn the inner and the outer together.
Great. There's so much to... I want to get to the channeling part because that's what you're really known for. Because is it necessary from the place you're at now, the clarity and, manifestation? Oh, one more thing I want to say about manifestation is what Joe Dispenza says when he puts out a thought. He says, give me what I want. Give me a little more so I know it's from a higher source.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
For myself, I connect into my heart first. And the understanding that comes out of my heart has that higher self quality to it.
I see.
A lot of people just think they want things up here. They have rational stories that if I get this, it'll solve my life problems.
Right.
But your heart doesn't empower it. And so if you're trying to manifest from only the power of your brain and trying to send energy from here, and it's not a heart-centered understanding, it's not going to have that universal power.
Right.
You can still manifest from your personal mind's willpower. Lots of people create that way, but it doesn't fulfill you.
Right.
It's empty happiness.
That is such a good point. Thank you for that little piece.
So I teach people to go into your heart and to try to live from your heart and to create from that place.
That is great.
And then like Joe Dispenza, you have these qualities because it feels different. It feels aligned, it feels right, and it feels like it supports the highest good for all of life.
Great. And it does, because it's coming from the place of connection to the cosmos.
Yeah.
So but is there then a need to channel? I'm not saying there isn't, but don't you feel aligned in the sense of who you are, that whatever you might be channeling, what is the difference then?
So what I do is different than some other channels.
Okay.
So a lot of channels are going to work with another form of consciousness, like another being or a group consciousness they bring through. I channel more of myself.
Aren't you doing that right now? Why aren't you doing it all right now? I mean, I'm serious.
I am, but when I take more of my awareness into the non-physical reality, I become more aware of what I am as this greater eternal state.
But can't you live that way right now?
That's been happening during my whole journey.
Okay.
So if you would watch some of my videos, for example, when I first began this, my personality is incredibly different to what you're witnessing right now.
But I'm not saying you have to do you have to be, but I still, when you, I guess I have to see what you look like if you're expanding higher self, what the difference is.
Yeah.
Because I think it's possible to integrate and live that way.
It is, yeah. And I've definitely integrated more of that higher self state. But I also have in my personality still other constructs from my personal mind that are still active in my expression.
But when you're channeling, they're out of the way, right?
They're out of the way because I've taught myself how to be that, how to communicate that way. Well, and I've gotten pretty good at it, like with you and I talking, where my emotions are really quiet and you can feel this heart energy. And like the emotions aren't judging things and being triggered. So I've taught myself how to do that from this path of Zen and onward. But when I channel, I take more of my awareness non-physical, and I actually go out of my body while I'm still here. So I feel myself up above and expanded while I'm still here, and I'm seeing with my mind's eye. I'm seeing the non-physical, and I'm also more as this energy body.
Couldn't you integrate that same awareness, I don't know, I just met you, into this body? So you're still non-ego, but you're expanded, but also embodied at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it's just a matter of becoming aware of yourself as this greater state.
But as you, I don't know, I will see, but as you kind of come out of that body, the mind is still aware of all of it. It seems like there might be at some point an integration.
Yeah, it's a process. Yeah. And I've watched it happen within me. And I've watched it happen within the people that I teach as well. So part of the work, the essence of the work, is to help people to connect to their higher self. Mm-hmm. So the teachings that I offer are really a combination of spirituality and human psychology and manifestation teachings, everything that helps us to awaken as this greater consciousness we are and live it as a human experience.
And how do we do that?
I got to watch my videos.
No, I know we got to watch your video, but just here right now, we are watching your video right now. But what is the essence? Is it just feeling yourself?
That's the beginning, yeah. So in the beginning of every channeling, the higher self instructs you. I should just do it for you.
Okay, let's do it.
That's going to be more authentic.
Okay, thank you for getting out of the way. Okay.
Better to witness it than to
Okay, I'm excited because, I'm really fascinated by this connection to the higher self because obviously we all have it. We're just
it's
in
our
the way.
greater eternal self.
It is.
It's not a separate being, although it first appears as something separate, and it did for me, something I talked with, but the more I realized it was my higher mind, my oversoul,
your true self.
I let myself embody more of that because I trusted them.
So how do you actually go into that process? I'm just curious.
So the first thing I do is I'll feel my heart because that's the center of the aura. That's the center of every body we have. Physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and where our soul comes into this reality. For me, I explain the soul as the personalized version of God.
Okay, so I like that.
The deepest part of ourself, it's like Atma and Atman.
Yeah.
It's that God self version in having a personal experience of reality.
Great.
Okay, so it feels like love, pure love, which is life energy.
Okay.
So my experience is before our mind takes life energy and divides it into all these different colors and qualities, it exists as pure love, as blissful love. Okay, so our soul is a field of blissful love energy, and to me it looks white. It looks like white light. Okay. And to me, it feels like love or life expressing. Starts from the heart. Mm-hmm. The way to awaken it, you feel your heart first, you get connected there, and then you feel the space around your physical body. Okay. And now you're starting to feel the formless quality of your awareness and the original form of energy, and those two start to combine, and your heart energy starts to fill the space of your aura and fill the space of your environment. So you're bringing form and formless together.
Beautiful, yeah. So is that what are you doing that now? Oh, you're just talking about it?
I'm just talking about it, but I can tell you're feeling it.
I was kind of going along with that.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
So, so that's, and then.
It feels amazing. Yeah.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, because I forgot
Makes
myself.
everything perfect.
Yeah, it does. It feels, I forgot myself for a second. Thank you.
Perfect, yeah. In that state, you feel complete. And you realize that the deepest part of you has no desire, not because you removed them by analyzing your ego, but because you found something original. You touched your original self, and you realize you are whole and perfect from the very beginning.
Yes, good. So let's see your stuff.
All right, let's go. Dear one, close your eyes. Feel the center of your chest. Be at peace. Relax into yourself. Relax into the feeling of your heart. Relax into the open space of awareness. Feel, dear one, the space. Feel the space that surrounds your physical body. Feel the space of your own mind. Notice yourself as this open, empty quality. Feel yourself as the space. You, dear one, are perfect. You are this perfect experience of peace and love. You are this open space of awareness, always empty, always still, always silent. You are this radiant experience of life. Feel your heart. It's God's energy shining. And as you feel your heart, as you feel this radiant open space, you experience that which you are for eternity. You are creation. You are the space in which perception appears. You are the energy that fills that space. You are the all-creative power. You are the eternal self. Feel your heart relax into this feeling of space. Relax into the heart's radiance. Now, as you practice this, you're learning to perceive yourself as the light of God. You are God consciousness, and these are the original qualities. At first there was awareness and the energy filling that awareness. At first there was the intelligence, I am, I exist. This deepest experience is always present, and you can perceive it as yourself. So feel your heart, be this space, and awaken to that which you are as the eternal self. Okay, now, dear one, we're going to have some fun with you. We're going to invite you to ask us questions, to have a conversation, and to truly, dear one, share anything that you would like.
Thank you. So the evolution of humankind is to come to this clear space collectively. And how do we get humanity to come to that place of peace?
Well, first, dear one, we will say that God consciousness is exploring itself in infinite ways, in every possible dimension, in every possible manner or form. It's not your responsibility to save the world. You see, God wants to be experiencing itself in infinite ways, because that's how God knows it's infinite, it's all-powerful, it's unlimited. Your responsibility, dear one, is to remember that this is all God, that this is all you. That's the awakening. The awakening, dear one, is a tangible experience of knowing yourself as the all that is. And if you go deepest within yourself, all the forms retract back into yourself. You actually perceive, dear one, the dimensions dissolving as the energy creating those dimensions draws back into yourself. At first it appears to go into your head, into your brain-based area, because that's where your waking consciousness resides. But then it feels like it goes back to the center of yourself, which would be more heart-centered in the physical reality, but non-physically based, it's just centered in your being. So as you, dear one, go to the center of yourself, essentially you're withdrawing everything inward, and you actually give yourself a tangible experience, a real experience that life is being created from you, from within you. And so you realize that all the forms you perceive are the same source as yourself. So we're awakening in this extreme way, of course, in a tangible multidimensional experience, to fully realize God consciousness. But along this journey, we also realize it in smaller ways by witnessing the unity that exists in every dimension. So synchronicities, feeling of connection, feeling of love, forgetting the ego consciousness and feeling united with life. All of these are pieces and parts, glimmers, sparkles of the original pure state. And so we awaken in the form-based experience, realizing the unity that's here, conceptually and experientially, until we eventually go to these higher and higher dimensions, which are essentially more inward and inward, until we finally reach that unity consciousness place, that dimension of pure oneness.
But let's talk about what's happening now. There's a huge shift in energetics and awakening in people in the higher consciousness that's coming to the planet. And talk about how we're making this transition, what we need to do, why is it happening, and what are we becoming? I know it's a lot to answer, but I'm just throwing that out to you.
Yeah. So first, dear one, you desire it. You see, every part of you is programmed, you could say, to desire happiness, which means everything wants more of itself. Your body wants more life. Your body wants more sight for your vision and smell for your nose and hearing for your ears. Right? So you want more experience of yourself. Your emotions want more experience of themselves as well, which is higher vibration and stronger vibration, more happiness. Your mind wants more of itself, which is more knowledge. Your mind wants to grow as a mind. So the whole universe is growing and evolving. So what we would say, dear one, is the evolution of humanity at this time is because you're all asking for it. Now, in this world, dear one, we're having a breakthrough because right now is very important. You see, the more we are in experiences of suffering, the more we desire the solution. The more we suffer, the more we want happiness. The more we don't like our life, the more we want to change it. The more we imagine and fantasize about a new life, and then eventually find ourselves motivated to express actions to create it. So humanity has been suffering for a long, long period of time. And humanity has also been having states of happiness for this same time period. But we're realizing, we're waking up to the fact that we're creators because we exist longer in incarnation. We're waking up to realize we're creators, and so now we're willfully seeking happy states. And to do that, we have to consciously work at changing these patterns of thinking and interaction that bring us in low vibration. So we are essentially waking up to the creative consciousness we are, and that makes it easier to change mind, body, and emotion and the events of the world. Consciousness is actually awakening to the creators they are, and the forms are traveling upwards with them.
And that's a new phenomena at this time, it seems like. But let's also talk about the ET presence, or whatever these other beings are. What are they? I mean, there's many, more than one, of course, but how can we be open to their assistance?
Yes, there are so many different beings in many, many different dimensions. The first thing we're going to say is that there are extraterrestrials, mean non-human beings, not of this earth, in higher vibrational existences and in lower vibrational existences. It's important to understand this. Human beings and the earth are not at the bottom of the spectrum. We're about 30% upwards in the spectrum.
We're 30% from the bottom or the top?
From the bottom.
Oh, okay.
If 100 is at the top and 0 is at the bottom, we're about 30%, say 28% right now.
Okay.
During this humanity shift, we'll get to about 31, 32% during this channel's lifetime, for example. Okay, so we have, dear one, the human race evolving, and we have higher dimensions above it. Evolution of consciousness happens through the journey of form. God consciousness is a formless creative experience. And God consciousness comes into form to experience itself as a creator. So God becomes form to experience creation. So God's journey is incarnating into form, beginning as gases, for example, the most basic of material life, evolving into more complex structures like crystalline structures, mineral structures, then evolving into plants, then basic animals, then complex animals, then human beings, and then light beings, and then eventually, dear one, angels. Angels are the closest to God realization. And so God comes into form, and God discovers itself through incarnating, through creating. Higher dimensional beings, extraterrestrial, whether physical or non-physical, they offer support because they have a higher understanding. So it's wise, dear one, to learn from people who are more intelligent than you, to learn from beings that have something to share. It's like, dear one, say you're in grade school and you're in the 3rd grade, right? Well, you can have a conversation with a 6th grader who can teach you about science. If you can understand those teachings and start applying them in their life, if you can read a 6th grade book, you're going to advance yourself very quickly through those levels of understanding. So sometimes human beings want to get to angelic levels, but they don't really know what angels are. They can't feel their vibration. They can't access that plane of existence. So they can't benefit as much. It's like giving a 3rd grader a 12th grader's calculus book. They can't really understand the mathematics. So what we have helping this humanity are a lot of races of beings that live locally in the planets close to our solar system, that are higher vibrational than ourselves, and they are a few grade levels above us. So we can access those concepts and those teachings. So we can use the sciences, even use the technologies that they offer to us. Humankind has been conditioned to believe that we're all alone in this universe and no one else is out there. And that, dear one, is quite foolish, because everywhere we look, we discover life. We should just assume that there's life elsewhere, and that would help us open up to a world that actually offers us support with its other areas of understanding.
I totally agree. I don't agree necessarily that we all just want to become angels. This is my personal opinion. I think as God incarnate, we're here to create more of creation. So we're here to be creators, to bring in the creative flow, so we add more to creation, because it's not a static universe. It's being created as we speak these words. So the highest, or maybe it's higher to be an angel, I don't know, but one of the most exciting things is to access the unknown and manifest it into form. And so,
that is the most exciting thing, being a creator.
Yes. So how do we get more of that? How do we tell the rest of the people that this is the excitement of this time?
Yes, well, you have to give some person something that they can actually experience, something tangible to connect with. So we would recommend giving someone information, because information is the beginning of the process of change. So the mind is the deepest part of you, next to the soul that's doing the creation. So an idea in your mind, when gathering energy, then becomes an emotional feeling. The idea, gathering more energy, moves from an emotion into a physical expression. So it moves into a physical nervous system expression. And then it becomes a thought. It becomes a physical motivation, a physical desire. It becomes word. It becomes action. And then you put it into the universe around you. So the first thing you give to someone is an idea. And if that idea is charged with enough energy, meaning they keep repeating the idea, they keep thinking it or reading about it, they keep exposing themselves to it, they keep charging up that idea, and then they start to build a frequency that is that idea's energy. You see, your God consciousness, and whatever you focus upon, you are always channeling creative energy into. So if you want something in your life, start by honoring the idea. And start by believing it's possible, because if you give yourself permission to believe it's possible, then you give yourself permission to focus on it and empower it and believe in it. And then you start feeling it as emotion, feeling it as enthusiasm. And then you start talking about it and thinking about it and making choices based upon it. And you start acting it out. And then you start manifesting it in your world. So you've created from the formless place, you've created that idea. Out of nothingness came an idea. And then you charged it and you gave it life. And you kept giving it life because you gave it time and you gave it attention and you gave it desire. And that's how God created this universe. God manifested time, change, existence. God manifested desire. And that is what brings these forms into life. So essentially, lastly, dear one, essentially, you, dear one, are creating with what has been called God particles. So God particle begins as thought, and then you charge it up, and that particle grows into then an emotional vibration in the emotional dimension, the astral dimension. And then you charge up that same particle, and it keeps growing in size and growing in strength, meaning it grows in density. What is most thin and subtle becomes dense as it moves into the physical reality. So the physical reality is actually the edge of creation. It's actually, dear one, the most advanced place in creation. So we're actually here to connect the dots between the beginning of ourselves as creators and the end of ourselves as physical reality. And we're actually here to be God creating the acceleration of the advancements of the universe.
And what's it all for? If God is to just know itself and we roll up into forever. So yeah, talk about.
It's for, dear one, simply pleasure.
Oh, okay. That's easy.
Yeah, God's doing it because it's something to do. Imagine, dear one, you existed for eternity.
Well, we do, right?
Just you, all
Okay,
alone, because you're
sure.
God, right?
Okay,
Just
right.
you.
Okay, I can imagine.
You existed
Okay.
all alone just for eternity. You're going to want to do something. You're going to want to play a game with yourself, right? So what do? You express the fullness of yourself, which is infinite, eternal, all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful, all-creative. But that's no fun. If you could win at the game, if you made a very easy game like putting a ball in a hole right in front of you, it would be no fun. So what you do is you start challenging yourself. You start making reality complex. You start hiding your knowledge that you're the all-knowing mind. You start limiting your power that you're the all-powerful creator. And now you've designed some game to entertain yourself for a long, long period of time, for eternity.
Right.
You see, you're eternal. You cannot be destroyed. You know everything. You're all-powerful. And so what do? You play a game with yourself for eternity. And to do that, you create the appearance of limitation that creates a journey of evolution and a journey of exploration. And you're right. Creating is really why we're here, and it's really the most exciting thing.
So what I'm trying to think of is the newness of human thought or evolved thought that comes into our field that may shock us or surprise us. As these ETs, for instance, come into our level of reality, or these dimensional beings, there's an aspect that is hard to integrate because it's not in the field, it's not in the awareness, but yet it's our evolutionary moment. What's the best way to welcome the unknown?
Okay. What's going to happen, dear one, is as humanity awakens to becoming more aware of feeling, of non-physical vibration, of emotion, they're going to learn the language of energy. And then when the ETs come, right, because they're higher vibrational, because they're more wise, because they have more love, you're going to know them because they feel really good. You see, if you're disconnected from your emotions, you're just going to feel a dense environment, and you're not going to sense the personality, the knowledge, the beingness of that form of life. And so as humanity becomes more self-aware of the vibrational quality of existence, they will learn to relate to the forms of life as the vibrations that they are, and then they will be ready to accept and integrate higher vibrational beings. But if they don't develop that awareness, they're going to interact from their biological intelligence, which is to be afraid of anything that is unknown. So the animal, dear one, is afraid of a sound it doesn't know what it is. It pauses. It becomes very alert. It might need to run. The human mind is similar, the body-based intelligence. When we don't know something, the first result, or the first reaction, is freeze. It's to become heightened in our perception, to gather more information so we can know what it is. And if we see something unfamiliar, like a blue-skinned being with a large head, then, dear one, we have no frame of reference. And if our only stories are television movies of alien invasion, we're going to be terrified, and we're going to say, off with its head. And that's unfortunate because it has a brilliant understanding.
Right. No, there's a question from a viewer here, and I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but overall, from all that you understand at this point, are the negative ETs possibly influencing our leaders in a totalitarian direction of their own agenda? I say that's always been going on. We always have to overcome that kind of totalitarian negative space, and we're here to evolve beyond it. What do you say?
Yes, there are non-physical beings of higher vibration and lower vibration than most of humanity, we'll say. And they're influencing physical reality because we exist in the whole universe. We're not a cut-off, separate planet. Some people will say there's rules where non-physical beings can't interact with human beings, but that's not true because there's no separation.
Right.
The challenge is a lot of human beings don't invite non-physical beings in. So what you have in a lot of these governmental systems is human beings who are inviting in non-physical beings of low vibration. They're doing DL1 rituals. They're doing prayers. They're doing incantations. Right. And this can be difficult to believe, but if you DL1 look in the books of history, you will always find these dark rituals for greed and control and lust, alongside of these light rituals for bliss and happiness, harmony and peace. So part of the conflict, DL1, is every human being wants happiness, but the more we define ourselves as a separate form of life, the more we seek selfish pleasures. And then the risk is to go to these dark paths because it's about separation. It's about getting what I want, even if it makes others unhappy. The more we awaken to unity consciousness, the more we seek light.
Right, and I think that's what's happening now. I think those old rituals of negativity are falling away, so they're giving their last kind of hurrah at this moment.
Yes, you see, human beings who are in the light are essentially taking back this human world.
Right.
Because we realize that we are more powerful, and we realize we've been tricked by the darkness. We've been taught that God is not here, that love is not possible, that you can't be happy. We've been taught that only if you're born into a certain family, then you'll have a good life, but if not, then you'll live as a serf or a slave, something like this. So we've been conditioned biologically by this selfish way of thinking in order to give away our personal power, or we should say to act as if we don't have personal power, because you can't really give it away.
Right.
You are it. You are the creator. And so, yes, there are these different forces at work. The ancient stories, light versus dark, the heavens are fighting for control of humanity. Of course, human beings are trying to be happy in the world, and they're part of this interaction that happens outside of life as well. But the reason why it happens in society is because these human beings, knowingly or unknowingly, because sometimes they don't do it consciously, but they just desire it strong enough, right? They're connecting with these external forces that give them power for their own selfish means.
Right, and it's just a bad strategy. So let me, if you have a little more time, wherever you exist from, to hang out here.
We can spend all day with you.
Okay, I can spend all day with you because I want to know about, well, in a sense, what's happening to Lincoln as the channel is coming through here. What happens to the aspect of that mind and personality as integrating these higher thought forms?
Well, Lincoln is turned off, you could say. The personality that is Lincoln is just turned off. It's muted, it's silent. The consciousness that is Lincoln is here. You see, when you awaken to more of what you are, you realize that you are a formless consciousness that comes into form in order to create, including to create the understanding of what you are. So when you exist in multiple dimensions, and this channel has gone back to the beginning of creation, he's gone to that first dimension he described. That's how he understands this. Right? In order to discover yourself in these different places, you become the body that exists there. So you take on the characteristics of that body. So if you're in a pure dimension of light, your human personality is gone. But you are being and knowing yourself as the light. You're now channeling the intelligence, the energy, and the awareness of that light body. And when you come into the human body, your human body has a personality. And that is aware, intelligent, and energetic also. So when you're body-based, you're channeling your body's intelligence. When you're non-physically based, you're channeling whatever it is you're aware of, the form you're in that non-physical experience. So when the channel is channeling like he is now, he has only a small percentage of his awareness in his physical body and in his physical nervous system. His awareness feels like it's in the head and extended above the body, and it's extended as empty space and vibrating energy in that space. So he feels his body, but inside his chakras, they are still and silent because his personality inside the human body is not expressing itself. It's all up here. Okay? Now to get here, he had to open his heart and he had to expand himself to be up here, but then he functions in his expression up here. So he's channeling his higher mind from higher chakras and from non-physical states, and his human mind, his human conditioning is turned silent. So he essentially is a present moment consciousness like we all are, and if he becomes aware of a non-physical body, a higher dimensional body, he then becomes the expression of that body's intelligence, awareness, and energy. If he's only physically aware, he becomes the expression of that physical body's memory-based understanding. So we're all like this. We are God consciousness. We have no bodies. We are formless awareness that is a flow of creative energy. We're invisible energy. That's what God is, formless energy. But we come into form to create something. And everything being created is a limitation of that wholeness that God is.
Right. So the ascension bodies, or the light bodies, or the higher vehicles that we are coming into at this point is the evolution of where we're going. And I think it might be possible to retain an aspect of, maybe we won't call it personality, but a beingness without the physical body. I mean, build the other body on higher terminologies of a presence of self.
Yes. So the way we perceive the ascension has two main characteristics. First is the raising of vibration of your human body with your human understanding and your human vibration. So all these practices and all this accumulation of information raises the vibration of your human form, your physical form. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is expanding yourself as awareness, expanding your consciousness to become aware of your non-physical body of light. As you become more aware of your non-physical body of light, you essentially expand yourself as a non-physical being, meaning you start to learn how to function in your non-physical state. So you start to become a higher vibrational, higher dimensional being. And that happens through the journey of also becoming a higher frequency physical human being.
And then how do we raise that frequency? How do we access?
There's so many ways.
All right.
There are so many ways. There are breathing practices, there are visualization practices. Even just making love with someone is a way to raise your physical vibration and to raise your spiritual energy. Basically, dear one, anything you do with your heart, anything you do with the desire to expand, you channel your God consciousness energy into the forms and awaken them. So do things that you love. You see, a human being can do all of these advanced spiritual practices and not enjoy it while they're doing it, and they don't get the benefit because they're not actually giving their God consciousness to it. But once you do something you love, you're actually accelerating the awakening of form. One of the easiest and one of the best ways to accelerate the awakening process is to feel that you love whatever you're aware of.
Right.
So you feel your body and you love your body, and that would heal every disease in a person's body.
Yes. Is there anything you want to tell me that you might tune into that I could look at and help evolve if you can see it from?
You mean how you could help evolve yourself?
Yes.
Things we can offer?
If you care to.
Well, this is a public
well, that's okay. I'm a public person. I mean, unless it's really bad.
Really dark.
Really dark.
Yeah. We're not going to go there.
Okay, I'm glad you have a...
We'll leave your skeletons in the closet.
Okay, well, we're all skeletons in the closet. But go ahead.
We love the closet.
Okay, yes. No, you can pull them out. I need to look at everything.
Everything.
And put everything on the table here.
We
Yeah.
wouldn't do that.
Oh, no, you
We
could.
really
If
don't want- we're just
it's okay.
joking around.
It's okay.
We're just
I'm
having some
open. Go ahead. I'll send you some energy there.
Let's see what we can call forth for today's meeting.
I don't have to work too hard on this.
Well, we're looking at you now and your desire for creation. We're looking into your mental body, you could say, your energetic form, and it's educating us, it's showing us, right, your desire to create more of your service. You're really heart-oriented. You've learned, dear one, along your human journey to essentially move away from self-service, serving yourself, and really focus upon how you can serve humanity. You wake up every day and you ask yourself, what can I do today to help this world? And this is a beautiful thing, dear one. It's really a beautiful focus, a beautiful intention that you have. So you're doing really, really good work. You're really working a lot to empty out selfishness, and it's really made a difference. So we congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
And we know that you're very happy with your progress. We see, dear one, you're desiring a close celebration. You're really wanting more human connection.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
You're right. Thank you for
Yes,
that.
and this is going to happen. You see, your heart desires it. Sometimes your mind questions about it.
Right.
There's a little part of a young boy that felt very alone, playing alone with your own toys.
I think there's a pattern in the way there.
Thinking, dear one, that no one wants to play with you.
Right.
But you know you're more than that, so you don't get caught on that subconscious part. So just keep trusting, dear one, that you're going to have very special connection coming into your life.
Oh, beautiful.
We see you very, very happy. We see you connecting with more people in a heart-centered way. Something we can say, dear one, is it really helps for you to loosen up your body.
Yeah.
We would say every day, shake your body.
Yes.
Do a little dancing, shake out your shoulders especially. Open yourself up, because this is going to help you to express more of yourself and express more of your energy in your life, because you have so much love you want to give. And you do want to, but sometimes it just doesn't flow because a lot of yourself is here.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And so if you open up this physical structure and kind of dance every morning, you're going to start to naturally, quite easily, animate yourself more and flow yourself more. And what you're going to find is you love expressing in your body. You're going to feel more of your personality share love and conversation and happiness as you let your body move and shine more. Right?
Thank you for that. The problem I have sometimes when people talk about service to self and service to others is that service to others is still a service to self.
It is.
But that's
not a problem then.
It's not a problem.
Yeah,
but
we should love it. We should give to ourselves.
Okay.
You see, because we realize when we give something to ourselves, we add happiness to existence. And that's what the whole universe is wanting, more happiness. So a person who loves themselves and gives to themselves is raising the vibration of life. You've been tricked. Humanity's been tricked that it's wrong to give to yourself. And so what happens is you keep feeling like you live in poverty. You keep feeling guilty and shameful for creating what you desire. That's been a trick and trap of these selfish people, these people with these low vibrations.
Right.
You should give to yourself. You should make your body feel healthy and happy. You should make your emotions celebrate. You should live your authentic expression. Because once you start honoring yourself, you're also going to realize that every experience you have involves life around you. So whenever you give to yourself, you're actually giving to others. And when you do something for yourself, you're so happy, you want to tell somebody else about it. So you want to include others with your happiness.
But isn't that service to self if I give to myself? I mean,
it is. It's service to everything. We cannot divide self from other. Because see, if you have a problem with service to self, then you feel guilty. And you feel shameful.
Yes, exactly.
That's the problem, the guilt and the shame. Not self and other, but giving. When you don't let yourself create, that's the problem. You're told you can't create for yourself. The problem is you're told you can't create. And that's why human beings stay powerless. That's the trick. It's not about giving to self. It's not about giving to other. It's about giving. It's about creating. It's about following your heart and giving because it feels good.
Yes.
So give to yourself. Dress yourself up. Go where you want to go. Eat what you want to eat. And you'll notice you're doing it right because you feel better.
Yes.
Right? So you'll eat healthy things because your body gets sick. You don't want to do that. Doesn't make you happy. You'll dress in ways that feel good and look good for you, not to impress others, but because you like the way you look and feel. So the more you learn to give freely, the more you actually align with effective ways to give, authentic ways that honor your unique expression.
But you talked about the trick of humanity. We've been tricked now. Who's done that and why? And
people who want all the toys.
Oh, well.
They want to not have to work. They want to have the biggest homes. They want to have the feasts and the parties.
But that's service to self, like you said. That's what makes them happy.
Yes, it is. And their understanding is one of separation. So they're still adding happiness to the universe. They still are, but the challenge they're having is they don't understand the unity of life. And so what they're choosing are limited forms of happiness. You see, these human beings, the only way they can cause suffering to another person is if they're suffering inside themselves, because you can only give to another what you have inside.
Right.
So while they're getting all these things, they don't realize that it's not fixing their suffering. And so these people who are causing darkness, what they need is a hug. They need love. They need to learn to feel an energy that's been missing from their lives.
Right.
So it's about vibration. So when we wake up as human souls in this world, we learn about frequency. It's like we shared with the ETs coming here to the earth.
Yes.
You learn how to sense, how to read the language of light, how to read frequency. And it's a feeling-based language, but also in the feeling there's understanding. And so we start to relating each other towards feeling. So someone does something bad, and what do? You send them love, because you realize they're the ones suffering, and that's why they put suffering in the world. And so we have compassion for those who cause harm to others, and we love others. And if we're feeling awakened and empowered, nobody can pull us down out of happiness. Right. They can spit in our face and we still smile. Because we know how vibration works.
That's, I think, what Jesus is trying to say. Mm-hmm. But in your state now, what are you feeling? Are you?
Oh, we're so happy. We're feeling love. We're feeling a shining of energy. We just love expressing here. We're so alive. We love life.
Couldn't that be true for everyone? Can't
It is.
But the world could come into that place.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely, we all can, and that's why we're here to help. Those who are ready to follow this path, and please understand there are many paths and many teachers, but those who feel resonant with this path, we invite you all to share. And our path is similar to everyone else's path because, dear one, they're all going to eventually take you into your heart. Right? And it's a beautiful thing. We love, dear one, the teachings of Don Juan. Yes. Remember, he said that all paths are the same, but the most important thing is to choose a path that has a heart.
Yes.
So when something resonates with your heart, follow it, because that's evolving you, that's ascending you.
It's what Bashar says, follow your highest excitement.
Yes, we say follow your heart, because sometimes excitement isn't so heart-centered.
Right.
Like with the selfishness that we talked about.
Yes.
If you get into your heart, you realize what's actually the highest vibrational form of excitement or the highest happiness. Mm-hmm. So we want to help identify locationally where, because sometimes people are up here and they're chasing after addictive patterns. Right. They're staying unaware of the emptiness, trying to stuff it up with things, not realizing they have to fill themselves up from within by feeling their heart expanding.
I think feeling the heart will get rid of all the hesitation that the mind may think, like,
trust
should I do? Yes,
trust your heart, and just love, because it feels so good to be connected. It feels so good.
What do you mean by love?
Well, understand, dear one, that energy is love. That's how we experience it. Because you go to the beginning of yourself, and all there is one energy, the original energy of life, and it feels blissful. It feels like pure love, and everything comes out of that. So all energy is love, which means all form is love, because all form is energy. So physical matter is God's love. It's God's energy. Mm-hmm. When you bring it back to its most original, its most basic expression, before it vibrated into density, it was love at the very beginning. Just like you are. You're love at the very beginning, and you express into density. So every physical form began as love and is love. It just densified itself. It just slowed down its vibration as it extended deeper away from that central place. So everything is love. What human beings desire is to connect with forms, right? That's what we desire. Everything we want to do is to participate connecting with forms, and that's love. So if I connect with one whole person, if I'm in love with one whole person, I feel a lot of happiness. But as soon as I start dividing that person into categories of good and bad, what I desire and don't desire, like what happens as we continue a relationship, now I start loving half the person, and the other half I have a problem with. And then I start loving a quarter of the person, and then a tenth of the person, and the relationship ends.
Yeah.
So when we allow our consciousness to embrace, to connect with form, we feel happiness, we feel love. The higher we evolve in wisdom, the more we realize, I want to connect with as much as possible. I want to stop judging and separating and fighting against. I want to start allowing and loving and finding peace and finding celebration with. So we learn as we evolve to see everything as one, but more importantly, to embrace everything, which also means to embrace our own expression as a human being.
Thank you for all your time here and your enthusiasm to help raise the frequency of humanity. Is there anything, or maybe you could project some energy or anything you want to leave us with to kind of incorporate and feel?
Yes. So first off, dear one, it's important that you learn to love yourself, because you can only give to the world that which you already have within. There's a big, big wound, and we talked about it here today, the difficulty people have of giving to themselves. And you can only give to another what you already have within. So it's really, really important that you learn to unconditionally love every single part of you, including the wounding of your past. So we invite everyone to be softer and kinder on themselves, because right now is a really challenging time and human beings want to grow so bad. They want to awaken and change the world so bad. And sometimes they get upset with themselves and they become hard on themselves. And then when they give that to themselves, they give that to other people. They start becoming upset with other people. So the first thing to do is give to yourself kindness and compassion and patience and peace and unconditional love, and you'll find yourself blossoming. So start with you. Start with loving yourself. It all begins there because you're at the center of the universe. And whatever you create from the center naturally expands into all of life.
One more thing came to me. Are you at the highest place, or is there a higher self to this higher self?
Well, what we will say, dear one, is the higher self, but not what you're witnessing. The higher self is an interface. You can call it the inner teacher. It's the part of your God consciousness self. So where God experiences itself as a personal form, it's that intelligence. That's your higher self. That's the higher part, the biggest part. Now, what the channel can bring through is relative to his ability to stretch himself up into those higher places. So he has to learn how to embody and become those higher frequencies, and that determines what he can express through himself in this human reality.
So the higher he becomes, the more higher he can reach.
Exactly right. And by going to as high as you can get, you naturally start going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. So when you reach your plateau or your ceiling, we should say, your ceiling of love, the ceiling starts climbing higher.
And that's each of our potentials.
We have limitless potential, but because we can create infinity, we can do everything that we want to do. When we remember that we are God, then we are experiencing our greatest potential.
Thank you. What's your, should I just call you?
Just higher self.
Thank you, Mr. Higher Self, for your time here. I appreciate this. And all the work Lincoln is doing to bring peace to the planet. And
we are very grateful for you and for this offering. We love to speak into this world. We love to express ourselves here. And we also commend this channel, as you have done. He does a fine service. We appreciate him being willing to empty himself and allow his higher self to come through.
But he is you, right?
He is us, but the personality learned to step aside.
Is there ever a time the personality will integrate into this?
Well, the personality that you are witnessing, such as when he becomes more physically present, that is the evidence of his integration. So say he's 60%, 70%, 1%, 2%, you make up a number. That's how integrated he is. We don't like to judge things like that because we just like to embrace things and say you're always living at the highest level of yourself in every present moment because you're always moving forward in time and you never can go backwards. So you're always growing, you're always awakening. Well, and there is no limit. So how can you put a number on infinity?
Right.
How can you divide it? When
so I'm trying to model what's happening here to activate my higher self. And I think that's what this video will be helping people do.